What's up, everybody? It is Carmen Britt with Wealth Nation, and we have a special guest in the building today with Darius and I. We have Mr. Drew Davis with Frida Group, who is an extremely reputable real estate investor over in the hood of Phoenix. So we're super excited to bring Drew on. But what we thought that we would do today is mix it up, because we have two very distinguished engineers with us today, and I wanted to talk to them about their success within corporate America and how they transitioned into your entrepreneurial journeys.
Okay. Yeah.
Sound good?
I like it.
Alrighty. So let's see who goes first. So first, Drew, do me a favor, introduce yourself. Where are you from? Your background, all of that.
Sure. My name is Drew. I'm with Frida Group, and I'm from here in Phoenix, Arizona. And I've been here for a few decades now, and got a background in engineering here locally in the state of Arizona at the U of A, Wildcats bear down, and just through my own journey of going through the same paces that most of us do. You get an education and you go out there and find a good paying job, right? That was kind of the game plan, and did that for quite a bit, and along the way got some education that changed the way that I look at the world, really.
Totally.
And you get exposed to a few different concepts that are pretty enlightening, and they can have some profound impact, especially financially. And you realize there's different paths that people can take based on what's most appropriate for them, which is different than what's most appropriate for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was fortunate enough to kind of find a path outside of more the traditional route, and that being in business. And so the path takes a turn. And so it's been a great experience, and going through this journey and transitioning from engineer to entrepreneur, so to speak, is one where I'd say it's been not only great, but no regrets.
Nice. Darius, your turn.
My background is also in engineering, industrial engineering. I'm from South Carolina. I've lived here in Phoenix for about 2 years. I graduated from Southern Polytech in Marietta, Georgia. Yeah, that's about it. My career path, right out of college, I started working in aerospace, and then went from aerospace to computers to oil and gas. And I think that transition, those very different transitions, is what kind of got me thinking that, man, I can basically do anything. And entrepreneurship was one of those things, I think, where you actually find your passion. Because engineering was more of checking a box.
Right.
Like, okay, I know that I have to go to college, so let's do something that I can maybe get paid pretty good for.
Yeah, make it worthwhile, right?
Yeah, exactly. So
pay off
check the
student
box.
loans.
So I checked the box, and I found that I really enjoyed engineering. But there were a lot of different hats that I had to wear within engineering.
Okay.
So I was like, man, if I can do this for them, then I can do it for myself.
Yeah, you've got the skill set. Why not apply it to your own mission?
Exactly.
I agree. So just to reiterate, Drew, you're electrical engineering.
Yep, double E. Yes.
And Darius, industrial engineering.
Industrial engineering.
So talk to me a little bit about y'all's journey from realizing, okay, I have these skills, how can I transfer them from corporate to now owning my own business? Was that a struggle for you? Because traditionally, of course not you guys, but the stereotype is that engineers maybe have some social awkwardness, things like that, which is totally not these guys at all, as you see. But talk to me about some of those barriers.
Well, that's a good question. Well, one, I'd say, I maybe consider myself a little more of an outcast from the standpoint of your traditional engineer.
Yes.
I'm a people person for the most part. I at least consider myself that. So
You are.
Being around people's a good thing. I think it's good in engineering. It's good in business. And the transition for me, I think, was really about something that was instilled in me early on in engineering. It was just the basic fact, no matter what branch you went down, engineering is kind of like preparing you for a lifelong learning journey. You're going to learn for a lifetime. So when you realize that and kind of adopt that philosophy, I think as you go along and you're just bumbling and stumbling around, you get exposed to information and you say, what's that over there? Let's take a look. And it's not like you're necessarily making some major life change, but you might end up going to a free seminar or two to check out a business opportunity. And through trial and error, we end up finding things that actually interest us, and you realize, hey, there's legitimate ways to be able to develop, if not a whole new career, but at least some additional part-time income that could be a bit of a difference maker outside of just a second job, if you're looking at ways to make extra income.
Yeah.
I think for me, one thing that resonated with me is the fact that when you're an engineer, you get all the questions.
Right.
Like you're like, oh, you're an engineer. What's the problem? And you have to figure it out. And that's whether you're in the office, you're like, okay, so why aren't these numbers coming out this way? I don't know, but I can find out.
Yeah, let me look into it.
Or why is this equipment not functioning right?
Exactly.
I don't know, but I can read the manual and find out.
Yeah, we can investigate that.
Yeah.
Get some answers.
Yeah, you get questions from everybody about anything, and they expect you to have an answer, and a lot of times we do. And when transitioning into entrepreneurship, that was one thing that I think affected me because I felt like I knew everything.
Yeah, because if you're trained to have all the answers, you feel that it's necessary that you've got to make sure, you check all the boxes, dot all the I's, cross all the T's.
It's true. So with coming from a structured environment to moving to a completely unstructured environment, did you have days, low, high days? How was that like? It was that great, huh, guys?
There was plenty of all of it. There was some high days. There was a lot of low days because those times when you can't figure something out immediately, like it frustrates you, don't it?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And you're like, I'm supposed to know everything. Why isn't this working out this way?
You might be very educated in whatever your particular professional background is, but that doesn't necessarily mean you have all the skills of what it takes to be a business owner, especially a successful business owner. And I think that's probably one of the big reasons outside of undercapitalization being number one for a reason small businesses fail is just because you have a skill, you can make a great spaghetti sauce or flavor ice cream or cut hair or pull teeth or whatever your specialty is. If you don't have the rest of the system that goes around that product, right? There's all the components that you need to for that success to take place. Then you're going to be consistently struggling, but you're also going to be consistently learning. And you've got to figure out when and where you get some help with some of those things, or you try and be that superhero that takes them all on, because that can be. It can be pretty draining.
Yeah.
Pretty draining.
One thing I do think that was huge for us is the fact that we were able to see behind the scenes.
Okay.
So because you asked all the questions, you have a lot of the answers. So you find yourself sitting with the executives knowing, okay, this is coming down the hill. Yep. This is going to affect thousands of people's jobs.
Yeah, you guys sometimes have the cheat codes. You know what's going on in the background.
Yeah, and we also know their habits.
Right.
Like every Thursday we know there was going to be a budget meeting. So that's stuff that we need to adopt within our business.
Yeah, there's value in structure, definitely. I think when we talk about the high days and the low days, it's one of those things where you understand that when you're building a business, you might not necessarily have all of the infrastructure in place that you might find in a traditional business. So not all of that is always necessary, but you're going to have your fundamental pieces, and your skill set might not align with everything, right? Just because you have an engineering background doesn't mean you have an accounting background or a legal background. Right? There's all these different categories of business or management. A lot of engineers that don't have people skills. How do you handle that? Hiring, firing, all these different things. Evaluating talent, how to retain it. So there's a lot of learning that goes on, but having the awareness of that and being willing to say, okay, I'm not going to try and slay this beast all on my own, and relinquishing some of that control is one of the most important things that any business owner, I think, can do.
Yeah. Absolutely. I agree, 100%.
Awesome. So now each of you tell me what you do. What is your business and what do you do?
Okay. Well, from the real estate side, essentially what I do is a combination of things. I'm a real estate investor, so cash flow's king. That's really what it's all about. So building a large portfolio of rental properties essentially is the name of the game for that long-term wealth. But also actively involved in remodeling properties, aka fix and flip, being able to take a property that needs some specific TLC, give it what it needs, and turn around, put it back on the market for a new homeowner to enjoy. And essentially, it's finding real estate solutions, solving problems, finding creative ways to negotiate deals to be able to find win-wins. And that's a very important part of any kind of business. So I think with all that, to say that there's a lot of marketing that goes on with that, to be able to find deals consistently. So really just, deal construction, marketing are probably the two big ones. And, always, trying to look out for the next opportunity to be able to say, hey, this is something that could, help us reach our end goal.
Yeah.
I understand that.
That's part of Maslow's hierarchy of human needs. Everybody needs shelter.
Exactly.
And that's something that you work with. So you'll always have something to do, right?
Always have a job.
Always have a job. Always have a business.
True.
There you go.
There you go.
There you go.
There you go. Better choice of words. All right, Darius, your turn. You're up.
Oh, so myself and I have a lovely partner for life that is amazing, and we share a business together called Wealth Nation. And what we do is we, of course with my wife, Carmen, we teach a concept called infinite banking. What infinite banking is simply utilizing your whole life insurance policy as a vehicle for your saving because of the guaranteed compound interest within a whole life insurance policy.
Nice. So as you all have transitioned from engineering into real estate and into the financial industry, what do you think your traditional education prepped you for to be able to prepare yourself for the businesses that you're in? Did it?
I would say constantly learning.
Yeah, okay. Constantly learning, number one, and a very close second right behind that is being able to build systems. Because at the end of the day, you want to have a business, you don't want to have a job, right? You want to be able to replace yourself in a lot of capacities, and to be able to have systems so you can get predictable, consistent results. And that's one thing that I've learned on the journey is that if you can get consistent, repeatable results, that's where you really kind of nailed something, right? And that's when you can start to build on and scale it out.
Yeah. Just piggyback on that, like a huge thing in industrial engineering is minimalizing your head count.
Yeah.
So we have a lot of jobs that we outsourced to another country because it was cheaper.
Right.
We figured out a way to do it, the same way over and over again.
Yeah.
We take jobs from here and then transport them to overseas.
It's been happening for a long time. It's just part of how things go.
Yeah. So that's one thing, like you said, one thing that I've learned to implement in the business is you don't necessarily have to physically be there in order to create something or have something generating money.
Right.
I like it. Alrighty, so now we got all the facts out of the way, right? I want to break it down. I want to get real for a minute because we've talked about your traditional education and all of that and what you've learned, what you've transferred over. But I want to get real. So let's talk about your realization now of real estate and your understanding now of money. Because I know what I learned in college wasn't anything what we're doing now. And I've learned that there's a huge difference, there's a gap somewhere in between traditional the status quo and the 1%.
Agreed.
Yeah?
Yeah.
So what was like the moment that smacked you over the face where you realized, oh my gosh, I've spent 20 something years of my life thinking the world was one way and now realizing it may not be?
Yeah, I think it's that you don't necessarily get a playbook, right? I mean, I think probably the number one thing I got in engineering about money was, the game plan was invest as much as you can afford in your 401k, right? It had to be, you're shooting for 15% or more, right? You got to put as much as you possibly can. You hit the limit in your 401k, max that out. And if you got any extra, you roll that into an IRA, right? And then by the time you're 65, you're just going to retire a millionaire. And just the sound of that alone was like, wow, millionaire, that means you're good. You just check the box like, all right, I did everything right. I'm
good.
Fine.
I'm set.
That's all there is to it. So you kind of get started and it's like, all right, well, the only thing they tell me to do is go max out my 401k. So that's all I did for a long time. because that's all I knew.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I mean, you can't fault them if they don't know, right?
Yeah.
Just didn't know.
Mm-hmm.
So
when was the moment for you with, okay, I maxed out my 401k, going into that mentality, maxed out my 401k, roll the rest into an IRA. And then once you did your first investment with real estate, and I'm sure all the creative investment things, that creative financing that you do, now it's like, what about this 401k?
Yeah, it's so different, than just anything I'd ever, been taught. I think that the moment came for me when I realized there was ways people were making money that wasn't just actively trading hours for dollars. The fact that residual income was not reserved for just movie stars and book authors. People could, through a variety of means, go out and build their own residual income. And then it's like, okay, well, what can you do with that secondary income?
Yeah.
And you're either consuming it or investing it.
Right.
And either path has a compound effect that builds on. So when you start to see the power of that, especially if you're lucky enough to be relatively young when you get that awareness, and if you have something going on that can participate in that, even in a small degree, you can use that time value of money to play to your advantage. But I mean, really use that time value of money to play to your advantage.
Yeah.
So that was kind of a game-changing moment for me, and that was probably about a decade ago.
Nice. I think there's a huge focus on the creating a nest egg piece, because when it comes to cash flow, trading our time for money is the cash flow.
Right. Yeah.
That's why there's nothing about creating cash flow. When understanding now that cash flow is the most important thing that for us now and in our future.
Right.
Nest egg is something that they tell us that we should have because that's something that they're benefiting from, right?
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with the 401k or IRA. Yeah. You can put money into it. You can put money into it and potentially make more money. That's the idea, but then there's risk associated with that. How much do you want to take a risk on your future dollars when you're not able to go out there and work or put in as much time as you are now?
Right.
Because we're the youngest we'll ever be. Right now we're the youngest we'll ever be.
That's always an accurate statement. Even right now.
Yeah, for real.
So it's going to be hard to put in the same energy that 30 years from now, because we're going to have families. We're going to want to spend time with our families.
Exactly.
We're going to be in a different health. We're going to be in a different state of mind, and we may not always want to go and trade time for money. So we have to start thinking way earlier about our cash flow. And that was one of the realizations for me, is you can create multiple streams of cash flow when you can automate it.
Right. Getting some automated income.
That's a powerful word. Cash flow, automation, I like it.
All buzzwords.
All buzzwords. So when it comes to, obviously you two are married. How was balancing that and your relationships? And Drew, you have 2 young children.
Yep.
So how about all of that?
Well, I would say, as far as balance goes, lucky for me, lucky for us, we got started with business before we got started on our family. I guess our business was our first baby.
Yeah.
So we weren't, torn. Our real sacrifice with getting a business going, being, under the age of 30 for both of us, was simply the fact that we had to put aside some of the party and BS, because that was where a lot of the free time went.
Right.
So you had to divert
time management.
Yeah, time management to self-management, right? At the end of the day, but when you have that awareness that there's better out there. In a lot of instances, in so many cases, for so many people, we're really fishing in the desert. And there's better, better place to be casting your line. And when you get to that point, whatever vehicle it might be for you, it's like you realize, okay, what am I willing to give up to go up? If I'm working 9 to 5, what am I doing from 5 to 9? You've got to, look to make an exchange somewhere, because the same way rich people, same way poor people, same way people in the middle, we all got 24 hours. This is how you spend it individually. And so we started to see and think differently and say, well, an hour here, an hour there, just doing something different. Maybe we'll go to some event, meet some new people. It builds up. It really does,
And the ultimate cheat code is when you talk about balance, is being able to do it with your wife.
Yeah.
And just being able to be on the same page when it comes to business, we're like, okay, these are my strengths, you know, these are my strengths, here's your strength, I know they're your strength.
Yeah, we learn to work together. Yeah. That's kind of what sets that foundation. So when the little ones do come along, I mean, obviously you've got to adjust, but the fact that solid foundation there is probably the most important.
The most important thing.
Yeah, because that's what comes first. The business is gonna build into it's gonna build into what's been created as far as us and our family and everything. So
yeah, I think that's the biggest part is the family, or well, for you, family, me and Carmen. The business, it'll play itself out based on how strong our relationship is. That's the key to the growth of our business.
Yeah. I mean, you can't have a shining business if at home
your
it's all rocky and jacked up. Everybody understands. For the empire to be good, you guys got to be good.
The foundation has to be good.
Yeah, foundation's got to be solid to build a skyscraper. Can't build one of those on the sand of the beach.
Unless you're in Dubai.
Good point. Tallest building in the world, right?
Engineers, all the structures to talk over there.
Yeah, touche.
I love it. So just to wrap up, what are some things that you would give other budding entrepreneurs, other engineers who may be overthinking, overanalyzing entrepreneurship? How do you get people to overcome the thoughts versus action?
I would say start with a passion. If it's something that you're really passionate about, just start with that. And if it's a hobby, start with that and grow on it.
That's true.
And if you have a significant other that you're thinking about starting a business with, do it. Make sure your relationship is on point first, and then get into the business, or get into a business with the intention of getting better in your relationship, because it goes hand in hand.
That's a great point. Yeah, I mean, your life and your business really are kind of one at the end of the day. We try and separate them, but you can't have one without the other. And the main reason you're having one is so you can experience value and benefit in the other. So I would say for entrepreneurs that might be watching this, there's a couple things you probably can learn from engineers, the methodology of thinking, and just the structure and the systems can be beneficial, because businesses do need structure to run efficiently, so you can have that repeatable result. Just winging it doesn't always work. But in reverse, for engineers trying to think like an entrepreneur might be having an issue, kind of getting the bus out of gear. Start small, take baby steps, start small, think big. You're not going to bankrupt yourself buying one rental property, right? If you've got a home to live in, buying one more property to rent out, right? It's just a starting point. See if you've got a taste for it. And nowadays, I mean, they pretty much make real estate investing like trading stocks. Go buy a slice of a multifamily apartment building, off of one of these sites like Fundrise or some others that are getting started, and probably as far as what I'm hearing, pretty reputable to be able to effectively find a way to invest. So take what you have. Maybe you don't have $5,000 down, $20,000 down, $100,000 to put down. You might have a few $100. You can buy a slice of something as a start, and now you've got a vested interest in an asset that could be bringing you a return that keeps your interest peaked if nothing else. And then later on, you can start to see if it's something that piques your interest further, or at least sticks with you, that you could expand on. Otherwise, a bunch of other investments out there to make a buck on. More than enough to keep your interest a different way.
Right. And I think it's huge to set goals. Like if you're making $5,000 a month, if you can make $1,000 someplace else, consistently make $1,000. And then as you grow, you replace your income.
Yeah, an extra $1,000 a month, part-time around your schedule.
There you go, and just grow on that.
Yeah, baby steps. There's levels to it.
Yeah.
So,
There are levels. I totally agree. All right, well, thank you guys so much for your time. Before we sign off, Drew, tell the people where they can find you.
Certainly, you can check us out online at freedagroup.com.
Awesome. Love it. All right, so signing off, this is Carmen and Darius Britt with Wealth Nation. Own your own lifestyle, or someone else will.
You got it. Thanks, guys.